Hello and welcome to my little video. I thought I'd like to have a look at some of the classic Dinky and Corgi representations of some of the wonderful old Gerry Anderson science fiction shows from the 60s and the 70s. And we'll start my little look with possibly the most famous. Back in around about 1966 they introduced Thunderbird 2. There she is. What a beauty. That is an original 1966 first issue Dinky Thunderbird 2. It's done in a nice glossy green, which is very close to the colour used on the TV show. It's not an exact match, but it's close enough, and it's quite a nicely proportioned little piece. Plenty of action aspects to it and play value. You can see if I pick it up that the pod drops out like so, and the little door flops down. The first ones had a green door, that changed later, and inside a nice little Thunderbird 4. Not overly detailed, but still not bad really. And of course it had the telescopic legs. They tucked away quite neatly underneath and popped out using the little side buttons. This one's actually missing a leg, which is quite common with these old toys. You can tell that this one's an original, by the way, because of the use of rivets here and here and so on. On slightly later models they were replaced with screws, so that if something broke, the casing could be taken apart and the offending pieces replaced, such as the leg that's broken away there. The other ones though, give it a little squeeze, pop out as they're supposed to do. There's two on this side, but they're a little bit awkward to get in and out, so I won't operate those right now. But they're the original legs, bright yellow plastic. Later ones came with red. Just going to tuck that one away now, they're a bit fiddly. But all in all, quite a nice little model, and even down to having chromed inners on the engines, and quite nice detail up on the dorsal tail, little thrusters. And this one, unfortunately, over the years has lost a little silver sticker that went on here that represented the, I suppose, air inlets on the tailplane there. But overall this has survived quite nicely. It's still got most of its stickers in place, and they're the original ones. You can just see them on the side there behind the window. A bit of a 2 there, the T2 on the wing, and yes, there's one on that underneath there. You can see there's bits of paint missing on it. This is, it's quite an old model. It's obviously had a reasonably hard life, but not as bad as some that I've seen, and some that you'll see coming up in just a moment. But that's the very first one. Lovely green Dinky Thunderbird 2. One of the few of their toys that they actually managed to put out using the right colours. I don't know why, I don't know what happened there. Very shortly after that first one, they brought out a revised issue, identical moulding, etc. It's the same toy, all the features are exactly the same, has the same yellow legs, same dropout pod, but you can tell now it's a different colour. They've gone to a sort of metallic turquoise, I guess. It's not accurate, but it is actually quite smart looking on the model. And now if I turn it upside down, you can see the screws that have now been used in place of the rivets on the original. This one's got a fair bit of damage on the wing there to the paint, but still, overall, it's not in bad condition. And it even has, as you can see there, the silver sticker. Peeling away a little bit, but it's nice, it's still there. We still have nice chromed inserts in the engines. Lovely little reissue. This one, the pod now had a black door. Not quite sure why they changed that, but still, it looks alright. I don't mind it in the slightest. What came later though, in the 70s, is quite a bit of a shock. There you are. That one is quite a bit bigger. And it's a much lighter blue. Just to illustrate how much bigger, here's the other blue one next to it. We set them up side by side. As you can see, it's quite a bit longer and quite a bit wider. Well, it's a bit hard to tell from there really. Let's do a tail to tail. There we go. You can see the difference in width there quite clearly. And the odd thing, this one also has the silver strip sticker, but you can see it doesn't reach the outer edges. It's actually just been stuck in the middle there. That shows it's quite a bit bigger. Part of the reason I think is that the booms here are quite a bit wider, and that has been done to facilitate much bigger, chunkier legs than those found in the originals. So okay, it's a slightly bigger model, but there's something not quite right about it. The colour doesn't help too much. They've changed the screws again. They're now Phillips type screws. And this one still has the little chrome inserts. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. Is it this one? Yes, this one still has the little Thunderbird 4 in the pod. I think this one came out in around about 1970, maybe 69, 70, possibly a touch earlier. But then they really messed things up a little bit after that. This one, the same upper structure, but for some bizarre reason, on the same pod as well, this one's quite a bit more play damaged. As you can see, overall it's really in quite battered condition, and it's missing its strip there. But the weird thing with it that they did was they made the bottom part now in black plastic. There are some available with white plastic as well. I guess it was more cost effective, but it doesn't really match. They didn't even paint it to match, so it looks decidedly odd, quite ugly. And even cheaper still, they stopped chrome plating the inserts in the engine tubes, which is a great shame. It's really, it just went too far with being cheapened down, which is a real shame. Now, as the 60s wore on, Gerry Anderson shows wore on, Thunderbirds came to a finish, and the one that took over from it, Captain Scarlet. Now I only have one of the Dinky Captain Scarlet range, but it is by far their greatest achievement, I think, and as far as that goes, the magnificent SPV, the Spectrum Pursuit Vehicle. This is the first issue one. Once again, it doesn't have the plastic safety cap over the top there, it's just the original metal plunger, and when you press the plunger, the side door pops out. I'll just turn it around, and you can see there this little Captain Scarlet figure in his seat. He drops down, ready for action. And for something so small, it's actually quite nicely done. Not the most detailed thing, but it's quite nicely done. The biggest problem with this model for me is the wheels. They're supposed to be double wheels, each one here and another one right next to it, all the way along. But Dinky only saw fit to put one row of wheels each side. But it doesn't really matter too much because it still looks pretty good, and you do get all the other fun bits with it. Let's tuck him away, shut him in. I'm not quite sure why they chose to do this with the aerials, but still, I suppose it gives the child something to do. Another feature that's quite nice on it is that the caterpillar tracks at the back drop down. And even though we never saw that in the TV show, it implied there was some greater use for them. I think in the comics it even went on so far as to show that this could climb steep slopes, mountains, etc. By tilting back onto the caterpillar tracks and driving yourself up at a very odd angle. And if you're going uphill, then the thing would be virtually vertical. Not very comfortable to drive. And the other one little nice feature is at the front. If you lightly depress it, the suspension pops open the front hatch, and inside there's a little generic Dinky rocket missile that doesn't want to come out at the moment. There you go, standard fare. That's tucked away, and if you have it set up correctly, give it a good shove from the front, it will fly out across the room. But overall, that is a very, very nicely proportioned model, and really one of the better ones, along with the original Thunderbird 2s. And of course it's in a colour much, much more as seen in the show. It misses some of the little red flashes and detail panels that are present or should be present, but hey, it's still a good looking toy. Much like, in fact, the Thunderbird 2 misses the yellow line around the main fuselage just forward of the dropout pod, but it doesn't detract too much on the model. And the SPV is one of Dinky's nicer models, I think. After Captain Scarlet, they came out with Gerry Anderson brought out a new show called UFO, and so Dinky came out with one of the most famous vehicles from that show, the Interceptor. Very nicely proportioned model, looks quite accurate, quite well sculpted, but for some reason they chose that very strange metallic green. I have no idea why. That is an original. It's one of the very first ones. In fact, it's a little bit of an unusual one in that it's got the, you can see here, the blue tinted glass. A few of the early ones came out with that, and it also has red moulded legs. Later issues came out with bright orange legs and skids. This is one of the more uncommon ones now. And they also coloured in the little ferrule here at the front that holds the missile in place. The fun aspect of this for the kids, I suppose, is the little trigger on the side here. The missile can be primed to be shot out. There's a little spring latch that pulls back to arm it. Then I'll just put my hand here so it doesn't go too far. Depress the trigger, and there it goes. And it will go quite a distance. And there you see the arming mechanism is relaxed. Pop that back in. It's ready to go again. Ready for action. Let's just pull that back. The missile sits better with it gone. There we go. A nice model, but I just don't know why they chose the metallic green. It really does kind of defy logic. They must have had an awful lot of green paint surplus in the factories. Who knows? Also from UFO, the other main hero vehicle as such was the Shadow Mobile. A different type of green, but still green. Unlike in the TV show, where it was a sort of silvery grey, a slightly blue tint to it. Once again, they went for a nice overall army green, though it does look quite good in the green, but it's still not accurate to the show. Quite a nice model. Very plain inside, no real detailing, just a couple of seats. There you go. It's hard to see really, it's difficult to get the light on, but it shows there's very little in there. But it's a nicely put together piece with some nice detailing all around. The profile isn't quite right here. It should of course be, the sides should be more rounded and sculpted as they come round and under. This is rather square and blocky, but it's still quite nicely done. And I think these are the original Caterpillar tracks as well. They always were a weak link and quite often dried up and broke, but those are still in perfectly good condition. And the main play factor for this, apart from being a nice looking vehicle to whiz around, was you flip the little aerial here, and there you go. You've got a dirty great big missile mounted on top, ready to fire at any aliens that came into range. Though of course that was never seen in the show, but it does look nice, and it elevates. There we go, yep, elevates, and of course it's on a little rotating platform. So you've got plenty of scope there if you're trying to shoot down model aeroplanes or whatever when you're a kid. So there we go, a nice model. I picked one up a few years ago now that was in very, very bad condition, had hardly any green paint left on it, so I thought I'll restore it and I'll make it look a little bit more like the Shadow mobiles as seen on the screen. So there we go. In a more silver grey finish, I painted the brown wheels grey. Those are replacement tracks. As you can see, they're black. Just a dull grey underside coat. Printed off my own decals for it and put them on, and I fixed the roof. It doesn't flip round anymore, but it's quite an impressive looking model. And even though the Dinky is missing all the sort of detailing, the little greebly bits that sit up on the top here, it still looks quite respectable. And this one I decided I would have a go at adding a bit more detail to the cabin. There you go, you can see I've given it some drivers. It's hard to tell, but even the back wall there has been painted, so it looks a bit more like the one that you saw on the screen, and I've added other decals to it here and there as well, and of course the all-important striping. So yeah, quite pleased with that. Even if the profile is slightly wrong, it still looks, I think, better than the green one, because at least it's in the right colours. And I did something very similar with the Interceptor as well. That is still the Dinky, but now it's white. It's got the red stripes where they belong, and I've also penned in some panel lines, etc. Added some other little decals to it, and done just a little bit of detail work inside the canopy. Don't know if you can see there. Yeah, just about. It looks a lot closer to that as seen on the screen, and unfortunately the silver paint here is chipped, and you can just see the orange leg starting to show through. But obviously it's still the Dinky. You've got the trigger there and the arming mechanism underneath, and of course it says Dinky as well. But on the shelf as a standalone piece, it looks pretty good, quite close to how the TV show one was. And I think the overall modelling, sculpting of the profile, etc. that Dinky did was a very, very high standard on that one. They got it, they captured the look very, very well. Right, after UFO finished, they came out with yet another series, this time in the mid-70s, Space 1999. By this time I wasn't collecting toys in the same way, but I did still get hold of the fan favourite Eagle Transporter. This little fella here. And once again, that's one that I managed to pick up relatively inexpensively, but in a very, very battered condition. There wasn't a lot of the awful metallic green on it. I think it was the same metallic green actually that the UFO Shadow Interceptor was painted. So it looked particularly bizarre, seeing as on television they were white. So I stripped it down, stripped off the old paint, cleaned it up, sprayed it white, redetailed the black here and the silver on the top, and where the rivet is. It's not a complete makeover. I've painted in the little panels here by the retro rockets, but I thought I'll leave it looking a little bit like maybe how Dinky should have released it all those years ago. So I left the plastic retros their normal colour. I left the doors bright red as they always were. Unfortunately this one lost its feet at some point, and even though they never were in the show, they originally had them with the engine, propellant, and fuel bottles, etc. painted gloss red, so I had to redo those to match the originals because they were badly scratched up and looking particularly bad. And these were the red, I think when I got this, these were the red plastic engine nozzles that look ridiculous, so I did them up in silver and blackened the insides of them. So it still looks a bit like the Dinky toy, but it also looks a lot closer to how the originals were on the television series. And that, I think, pretty much rounds up my collection of Dinkies. I should just like to point out though, before we go any further, the Dinky Eagle also came in a couple of other variants as well. There was the freighter version of it, which didn't have the pod. Instead it had a platform with magnetically attached barrels that you could winch up and down. Looked quite nice, but I never did get one of those, and that one at one point was actually released excuse me, in the correct colours. Yes, it was white, but the transporter, as you see there or here, never was white. I don't know why. And at one point too, I think the transporter and both the freighter came in that same strange light metallic blue that the later Thunderbird 2s came in. So not a particularly satisfying model after a while. That's that with the Dinkies. Now we are back to look at Corgi's offerings. And even though these are a lot newer, because all the Dinkies are from the 60s and the 70s, and they are originals, of course, Corgi came out in the early 2000s with a new range of toys based on Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet, and they did quite a good job. We'll look at the Thunderbirds ones that they brought out first. I've got a couple of them here. We'll start off with Penelope's Fab 1, the pink Rolls Royce. I never was lucky enough to get hold of the Dinky version of this. I had one when I was a child, but unfortunately it got broken. I've never been able to get a hold of one since, certainly at a reasonable price. They too are fiercely expensive. Corgi brought out their version, which is very nice. It has the same sort of features that the Dinky one has. It has the fold down radiator, and just behind there you can see the tip of the red rocket behind it. That's activated like the Dinky using the front suspension. Front wheels fire the rocket. And at the back you have harpoons nestled in the rear light clusters. Those are fired by pressing down on the rear suspension, and it's very, very, there we go, let's let them out. They go pretty well, and they go a long way as well, and they're hard to find because they're so small. See, oh, come here, just little pieces of grey plastic, so they blend in quite well with carpets and whatnot. But there we go. The model may be slightly off in profile, it has been criticised, but I think it's still quite a nice representation of it. It's not as low and sleek as the Dinky one. I think maybe that one was a little bit too low and sleek. This one's possibly a little bit more accurate to my eye, and quite nicely as well. Like with the Dinky, it has a sliding canopy, and inside, as you can see, there's good old Parker and her ladyship. Not the most detailed interior, but still quite nicely done. Overall, I think that's quite a pleasing little model. I like it. And I was lucky enough to find a very limited edition that they did of it. I've kept it in its box. So it's a splendid packaging, lovely box. It's 40th anniversary of the show, and this is the one, strange colour, sort of very metallic pink, totally inaccurate to the show. You can see the contrasting colours there with the highlighting on the canopy. They kept it the original pink, they didn't put the new colour on for some reason, but otherwise everything's the same with it. Very nice model, limited, only 5,000 of these were made, so I'm rather pleased to have it. I think it's quite a nice little curio. Now, Corgi went on to retool and reissue Thunderbird 2. This is basically the Matchbox issue that came out in the early 90s, but they've done a little bit of retooling to it and made it a little bit nicer, I think. Quite a nice little model. Nice shade of green that they've used, and they've added more paint detail to it as well, that the Matchbox never had, and certainly the old Dinky never had. And here now we've got the yellow and the black striping on the engine rocket nozzles. They've put little yellow flashes here on the sides of the top ramjet. We've got the yellow flashes on the wingtips, upper and lower, and of course the yellow stripe right here, which the Dinky doesn't have. Now, one thing that I prefer with this one over the Matchbox definitely is the buttons here that they've put on. They're still quite obvious, but at least they're a subtle grey. The Matchbox, bright red plastic, and they really stand out. They're really glaringly poor. This one though, in the grey, they don't stand out quite as badly. And what you've got here, the one on the back, pull it back, it releases the pod. Of course, these side ones release chunky grey plastic legs. Look a little bit better than bright yellow ones, I suppose. And the pod is quite nice. More like the one seen on television. It's not just a flat front face, it's actually recessed quite nicely. The door drops down and it's got very minor detailing there, the little ridges on the door flap. And inside we've got a lovely little Thunderbird 4, quite nicely detailed for its size. It is tiny, but it's very nicely made, very well detailed, and this is actually metal. Not plastic. Looks the part. As you can tell by that solid noise, it's quite heavy. So that, I think, overall is a very, very attractive Thunderbird 2. I still prefer, I think, the Dinky, but I think the Corgi one has really up to the ante with the detail on a production line run of die-cast toys such as this, even down to more accurate painting of the inlets here with the red, and then the actual grills painted black. So it's a quite nicely detailed little piece. And they've even put where the, well, I guess that's where the rivet holes on the Dinky one were. On the show there, the rocket motors for landing, which is a bit bizarre, because if you watch the show, all the exhaust vents come out of the little pods where the legs are, which is a little bit odd, especially as they did detail in the retro motors down here. An oddity in the show. So there we go. That's your Corgi Thunderbird 2. Nice profile. Looks good. The pod's being a bit awkward to get in. Come on. Thank you. A good tight snap, and it doesn't move about too much, so there's no real play. So yeah, overall, very good. 2005, there we go, that's when this one came out. Yeah, pleasing little model. That was all that they did for Thunderbirds, but they did produce a very smart line for Captain Scarlet. We'll start off with one that I got in a double pack, because Captain Scarlet was remade not long ago as a computer animated program, quite nicely done. These have never been out of the box. This is the new Captain Scarlet Angel Interceptor. Quite nicely detailed, profile looks good. Slight detailing in the canopy, you can't really see it too well there because it's all white. They haven't done any sort of real painting except a pink splash where the face would be. But overall, it's nice, and this one's labelled up for Destiny. Rather a nice model though. Nicely made, nice detailing. Quite a good job. But then we come to what I would consider the real Angel. There you go. This one, I say, is out of the double pack. They've done this nicely. The only fault with this one is that the front leg skid down here is non-detachable, it won't come off. It's a bit of a shame, so you can't kind of display it in a flying pattern. It looks rather plain, there's not an awful lot of obvious detailing on there, but you can see the inset panel lines. There's a little bit more going on in the cockpit in this one. Just about catch it there. Nice little details and decals, stickers on there. Yeah, overall, nice little model. Good representations of the Angel aircraft. They also brought out, very similar to Dinky, it's the first time this has been out of the box today, I tell you. I always kept them in the box untouched, but to show you them on film, I've removed them. The SPC, the Spectrum Patrol Car. There we go. Nice. Very nicely made little model. Nice paint details in there. And the front lights, the silver coach line. All around, very attractive and nice. Use very shiny diesel stickers on the Captain Scarlet range. They look rather good. And they have a little bit of added interest. Opening doors, and inside, a quite nicely detailed Scarlet figure, as you can see in there, with a reasonably detailed dash. Of course, the other door opens on the other side. Nice. So there we go. Very nice, accurate little model. The only thing that's missing from it, right here, there should be an aerial. I don't know why they chose to ignore that, or to omit it. It takes away ever so slightly from the look of it, but not much. Everything else is pretty spot on, even down to the mirrors on the front there. There we go, little mirrors either side. Very nicely done. But the jewel in their collection, the new one, is again very, very similar to the Dinky, the SPV, Spectrum Pursuit Vehicle. And this one, in some ways, goes one better. Once again, never out of the box until today. Similar in size, just a little bit smaller. Colouring's good, nice red piping. And there's inlets and the lights at the front, and on the panels on the roof here. They have put aerials on this one, you can see them against my hand there. Very, very fine. Look good. Look very good. And of course around the back we have nicely detailed tracks. Come down, and there's a nice little bit of attention to detail here in this section, so it's not just plain and even. And the mounts there, very nicely detailed. Even underneath they've put a nice bit of detail in there. And this one, unlike the Dinky, has that double row of wheels. See? It's not just one thin wheel there, it's the correct double set of wheels all the way, as the original studio props had. So it gives it, I guess, that extra bit of traction and robustness. Like the Dinky, a light press on the front wheels pops the front hatch open, and as you see, it's trying to get out, a little red rocket. Front hatch is smaller than the Dinky. If I remember rightly, that's actually a little bit closer to the things are too big for this. There we go. A little bit closer to the TV prop. Now the door mechanism they've got on this, very much like the Dinky one. They've cleverly hidden it. They haven't used the little top piece there. That's a soft rubber. I suppose that kids can't cut themselves or scratch themselves with it. What they've done, they've used one of these panels here, so it's on this side. So the panels, it's not very noticeable. It took me ages to find it when I was trying to open the door. Pop that one down slightly, there we go, out it shoots. This one doesn't drop down unlike the Dinky, but you've got, once again, a nicely detailed little Scarlet right there, ready to go. That's a very neat way of doing it, having that there like that. It's hard to activate accidentally, and it's very, very subtle. It's not glaringly obvious. So overall, that is a lovely little model. It's very, very impressive. And that about wraps up the Corgi collection of Gerry Anderson. Remember all the Corgis here, they came out in the 2000s. Unfortunately they never continued with any of the other vehicles. It would have been nice to have seen some, but as it stands they've left us with a nice little legacy here. Maybe they'll pick up on it again, because happily enough Corgi are still in business, very healthy, producing some cracking little models. Dinky unfortunately went by the wayside many years ago, which is sad, but there we have it. That's my little collection of Corgi and Dinky, Corgi and Dinky Gerry Anderson themed toys. Thanks for watching.